Broadcasting live from somewhere underneath the ground. Archaeology News. The news you can trust.
All right, so this story is actually arguably not even archaeology at all, but I will get into that later. So a little known fact of history is that in the 16th, 17th, and 18th century, there was a big chunk of the slave trade that involved Europeans, but not as the enslavers. They were the enslaved. And the perpetrators in this case were from Africa. They were the feared pirates of the North African Barbary coast. Estimates of the number of European slaves taken during these centuries range from hundreds of thousands to over 1 million. Now, one of the centers of this trade was Algiers, which still exists today under that name, and that was the center of a semi-independent state nominally under the wing of the Ottoman Empire. For example, from just 1621 to 1627, Algiers alone captured more than 20,000 slaves, representing a veritable United Nations of enslaved people, including folks from the Netherlands, Belgium, Scotland, England, France, Denmark, Ireland, Hungary, China, Japan, Brazil, Ethiopia, Syria, Egypt, and those are just some of the places these folks came from. In the 15th and 16th century, the city even had its own internationally infamous and feared pirate leader, local governor, Hayreddin Barbarossa. And now a pirate named Barbarossa, where have we heard that before?
So tell me, what's become of my ship?
And these Barbary pirates were major players in international affairs. You see, I visited both the island of Vestmannaeyjar off of Iceland and also Skansen Fort in the Faroe Islands capital of Tórshavn. Now, what do these two places have in common other than they're both sort of in Scandinavia? Well, both of them are really far from the Barbary states, and both of them suffered slave raids by Barbary pirates, both in 1609, one in 1627 and 1629, and in those, whole villages were carted off into slavery. And believe it or not, from 1801 to 1805, a newly independent United States under President Thomas Jefferson fought its first foreign war against the Barbary pirates. Anyway, you get the picture. The Barbary pirates were
kind of a big deal.
And so was a recent shipwreck find. You see, I think this is the first example of an excavated Barbary pirate Corsair, as their feared raiding ships were known. First discovered in 2005 at a depth of 2,700 feet or 825 meters, this was in the Western Mediterranean in between Spain and Morocco, and it was a small ship that was found, only about 14 meters or 45 feet. Now, that was almost 20 years ago, but these things are normally kept under wraps for quite a while to avoid, shall we say, competitive excavations. Well, first, the artifacts. It was laden with objects, but mostly a lot of pottery. And some of this pottery came from Belgium or Germany, Turkey, but actually a lot of it was made right in Algiers. So that was clue number one. And clue number two, the pottery dated the shipwreck to around 1760, a high point for Barbary piracy, though of course some radiocarbon dating of the hull and other things could help calibrate that date range. However, the dead giveaway, this little ship was laden with guns, muskets, cannons, swivel guns, perfect for this little guy to unthreateningly approach a much larger ship and suddenly bust out the guns for a sneak attack. And fortunately, given that the finds were pretty commonplace, mostly just some pottery, it's likely that the cargo or the intended cargo would have been, you guessed it, slaves. Now, remember at the beginning I said that this story arguably wasn't even archaeology? Well, why not? You see, the company that located the wreck and did the research was called Odyssey Marine Exploration out of Florida. And this is not an archaeological company. Their business seems concerned mostly with finding valuable resources like gold and phosphate underwater. So this would put the project squarely in the wreck and treasure hunting kind of space. Now, archaeologists have a range of opinions on this sort of thing, but I think it's fair to say it is overwhelmingly negative. You see, wreck hunters are like metal detectorists. There are good ones who cooperate with authorities, record their data to a high standard, report their findings. For example, like Terry Herbert, our friend who found the Staffordshire hoard. But there are also bad ones who just plunder sites and sell the stuff on the open market. And then there's also international law, which is actually pretty messy in this space, because it involves both salvage law and UNESCO's Convention on Underwater Cultural Heritage, as well as general archaeology principles and heritage law. And those two things, salvage law and the heritage law, often directly conflict. Depending on exactly where the wreck was found, Spain, Morocco, or Algeria all could have potentially had some role in saying what should have happened to it. And the fundamental principle of that UNESCO convention, and really archaeology in general, is that the underwater heritage and other types of heritage should be left alone unless specifically threatened, in which case you can go in and record the information and then recover certain things. And that's totally inimical to wreck hunting, which is all about recovering things. In fact, I got a lot of the information and images for this segment from Wreck Watch magazine, an article in that publication. Now, that's obviously not archaeology, and to be honest, although there was some archaeology done here, like pottery analysis, I'm not even sure if any professionally trained archaeologists were involved, and I have no idea how thoroughly they recorded their data. No, I'm not casting any aspersions because I really don't know anything about Odyssey Marine Exploration or where exactly the wreck was found. But you can see I've got questions, and this is why a lot of archaeologists kind of generally get pissed off about this kind of stuff. But you know, to be honest, I'm not really 100% sure where I stand on all these issues. You see, there are so many wrecks out there that go unexplored, because there's not nearly enough funding or archaeological bandwidth to study them. And if it just sits at the bottom to decay and people don't really get a chance to learn anything from it, what good does it do down there? On the other hand, if a wreck is sitting down there in a very good state of preservation, not threatened, and then a bunch of wreck hunters come along and plunder it and then nobody learns about it, what good does that do anyone other than the wreck hunters? So I'm really not saying it's good or bad. I'm saying, like everything in archaeology, it's complicated. Why don't you let me know what you think down in the comment section? Hey, if you like what you heard, give me that thumbs up below, hit that bell to subscribe, or if you want to support more independent archaeology content, consider contributing to my Patreon, where you can enjoy some exclusive members-only benefits and other goodies. Until the next dig.